Welcome to the Awakening Podcast. You can find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. You find everything about me. Scan the QR code or go to roycoughlan.com where you find my 6 podcasts along with the podcast coaching. I've also started a podcast school group where I'm helping existing podcasters and those looking to start. And you find a link in the podcast description if you're looking for virtual assistance, go to va.world. My guest is a German-born and raised inventor, entrepreneur, public speaker, life and health coach, a management consultant, and author. He spent most of his time in the past 45 years between his own companies in Germany, Taiwan, mainland China, and Hong Kong. Nowadays, his headquarters is still in Germany, while his co-office is in Florida, which he is today. So please welcome Norbert Heuser.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you for the first time. And it feels like I'm meeting an old friend. So all is very cool here.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've already had a nice conversation prior to recording. And, you've lived in Ireland, which is always nice to hear. So I suppose where I'd like to start is you're doing a lot of stuff because in the preparation, you've got a lot of different kind of, I don't know, the patents or the inventions and things like that. But what I found is there's always something happens in the person's life that leads them to go into the kind of health area or the wellness area or to make society better. I'd like to know your story, how you got into this.
Well, I'm happy to give you a quick rundown. The story would be too long for the show because we got to get to the main topic of the show. So what happened is that at an early stage of my life, I had past life experiences and out-of-body experiences starting at the age of 3. And I lived a very active life, no drugs, but sex and rock and roll. So I was not a priest, not exactly, but I had a lot of fun. And at the age of 45 years ago, I was working as a management consultant. I became very, very sick. And prior to that, I wasn't in hospital at all. I never needed a doctor. So that was completely a surprise. And I found by accident a doctor, and he fixed me in 2 weeks. And this doctor was specialized 45 years ago in food addiction, which nobody heard of 45 years ago. Food intolerance, food addiction, which are intertwined, but they're different. So I was so amazed by what he did and what I saw in a few weeks. I asked him, the doctor, can I do an internship with you? You don't need to pay me. I just want to learn. And he said yes. So I worked with him for 1 year, every day except Sunday and Christmas, for 1 year, every day. And what I learned completely changed my life and my job as a management consultant, because I saw that a lot of managers I consulted at this time had more or less drug problems. And if not drug problems, they had problems with food addiction, and they weren't aware of it. And these food addictions and intolerances became bigger and bigger and more spread over the world. So I saw that I had to fix these people first with their health in order to get to their brain to change their habits of working, of running their businesses. And that was so successful that I became then, from then on, not only a management consultant, but a life and health consultant. Then I started to study, to read, to study. I was fortunate enough to get with great people together who were willing to share their knowledge. And I kept asking questions. I kept asking questions till I came up with my first thesis, which completely was the directory of my future life until today, and which led me at the end of the day to write the book we're talking about today. So what I found out was what addiction is. You hear and see a lot of things about addiction. Fine. For me, addiction is a dependency stronger than your free will to say no. If you have a free will to say no to something, you're not addicted. But an addicted person has to follow the addiction. The addiction will dictate his life or parts of it. All right. Then I found out that you can be addicted, what I called then my thesis of 3 Ps, the letter Ps. You can be addicted to a product, which we all understand. It's like alcohol, or it's drugs, or it's whatever, you know. You can be addicted to a product. And I found out that a lot of people are addicted to certain foods, but they're not aware of it. And be addicted to a food can have catastrophic consequences in your life and in your health. Then you can be addicted to another P, which is a procedure or process. You can be addicted to a procedure, which a lot of people first don't understand. How can I be addicted to a procedure? Well, if you think nowadays about cell phones addictions, internet addictions, which develop as addictions, people cannot live without it. Take for some people their phone away or their Wi-Fi away for a day or for a week, they go crazy. They can't live without it.
I've seen children destroy their house when the parents took it away. Like, you see the recordings online in America. They just ransacked the house because the parent took the phone away, which is a serious addiction.
Yes, yes. And the problem is, technically, this world cannot live without electromagnetic radiation, which you have in cell phones and Wi-Fi anymore. It's over. We need to have this in our society. Our society would collapse tomorrow totally if you would take it away from the daily procedure of work. Well, I have another show if you're ever interested in, where I talk about these subjects. So the first P is you can be depending on the product. You can be depending on a procedure and the process. And if you think about procedure process, you know, a lot of people have porn addiction. And there's a lot of stuff going on there. And the third addiction, P, is for a person. You can be addicted to a person. And these addictions usually end up in catastrophic divorces and what have you, and fighting over personal issues, because they were addicted to each other, but not developed a loving, supportive relationship, but it was based on addiction. So I developed my thesis of the 3 type of addictions. Does it make sense, right, to you?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
So then I've developed my next thesis, which is, besides the addiction of these 3 Ps, which people could have a look at and make a copy or look back again and work with it and think with it, and you'll find out. Okay. And we'll talk today about addiction of the product, which is called caffeine. Then I got my next thesis, which is, very surprisingly perhaps, was for me anyway when I developed it. I was proud when I developed it because it works. Every time you have a strong craving for something or somebody, a strong craving is always a proof of addiction. A strong craving. Not like something, that's different. But the craving. I mean, people wake up in the morning and need to have a coffee first, or a cigarette, or even some people, some alcohol, whatever, to get going, right? It's a strong craving. I mean, I never met somebody who has a strong craving in the morning for a salad, right? I got to have a salad. Otherwise, I'm getting nervous. I need a salad now. And when you look at commercials, 99% of all commercials which are consumed through your mouth are all addictive. These people are not stupid. When they spend 10 million on an advertising for a product and it's addictive, once the people started to consume this product, the majority will stick to it. And they have a customer for life, or should I say they have a victim for life. So what is there goes through your mouth addictive? Alcohol, tobacco products, pharmaceutical products. You can be addicted to pharmaceutical products. Sweets, the sugar, fast food, all addictive products. Once you start to consume them, you can't stop. Everybody has experienced, you're watching TV at nighttime, you have a bar of chocolate there. Before the show is over, the chocolate is gone. Once you started it, and I'm saying on the book cover of my book, for me, the widest spread drugs in the world is caffeine and sugar. The problem is they're both legally okay. They're accepted. They're not illegal. That makes them especially dangerous because there's no limitations. There's no laws. And you'll see today some examples. All right. So this is the basic. We're asking the question about me, my life. How do I get to it? So how did I got to that? And the fun part is our title today is, are you addicted to caffeine and you may be not aware of it? Right. The book title officially say every coffee drinker is a drug addict. Of course, people freak out to drink coffee. I'm not an addict. We'll talk about this in a minute and you'll find out. So this is how I came along with this. In all my life, I never drank coffee. Never, ever. But I loved the smell of fresh grinded coffee. I loved it, right? But I never drank coffee. And I gave for the last 15 years some 200 workshops, seminars, talk shows. And I always warn people, hey, stay away from caffeine, stay away from coffee. It's bad for you, right? But I never drank it. And typically the things I talk about in my seminars, I experienced myself or with somebody close to me or with some of my clients I consulted. So I saw what happens. And I realized that I worked with alcoholics. So an alcoholic drinks today because it's raining cats and dogs and says, what a shitty weather. I got to have some fun and drink some alcohol. Tomorrow, the sun is shining bright. The same person says, well, what a beautiful day. The sun is shining. We've got to celebrate. Let's have a glass, right? They always have a justification. And I explain in my book the details of everything I'm talking today. In the book, a lot of details and explanation. So they have a justification. And we'll get to this in a minute now. But besides having the justification, I can tell you from my life experience that every alcoholic, the next day, he swears, by God, I will never drink again. And the person believes it. He really believes that he will never drink again. But then the addiction kicks in, as I said, stronger than your free will, right? And the addiction takes over. And this is a big vicious circle for somebody who's really in drugs and in alcohol and so on, because every time they lose their game, their promise they made to themselves, they didn't keep. And I found out this gets to their nerves, this gets to their personality, this gets to their self-esteem, and they lose respect for themselves. This is a big vicious circle for somebody who's addicted. All right. So when the lockdown came, I could not travel and give seminars, which I did all over Europe and America and Canada. I said, okay, the time is right for me to make a self-test. So I turned myself voluntarily into a coffee addict. What I did was I said, okay, I'm going to drink now for 30 days, every day 1 cup, and see what happens. After 30 days, I'll stop. The first days I was suffering a lot because coffee is very acidic, and you realize it only at the very beginning when you start to drink coffee. Very acidic, stomach problems, blah, blah, blah. But hey, science. I got to suffer for the science. I got to find out. Oh, let me suffer. I drank every day 1 cup only. And after 30 days was a day to stop. I drove to my company, and suddenly I found myself in the drive-in here in America, and I ordered another coffee. And I said to myself, well, come on, 1 day, 30 days, 31 days. Come on. Don't be so stiff. Don't be so German. Come on, drink another coffee. So I drank another coffee. Second day, same thing again. Third day, I said, well, why the hell did you say 30 days? Why didn't you say 60 days? And I looked in the mirror and said, crap, you're having now the same justifications like I saw with my clients who are strongly addicted, for example, to alcohol or other things. And I saw, Jesus, you are addicted. My theory, my thesis is true. Caffeine is a drug. And it took me 2 months to get off it. 2 months. Strong fighting, strong temptations, and now only 1 cup a day. Now imagine somebody drinks 4 or 5 cups a day or more for 5, 10, 20 years. So everybody who drinks caffeine, and now important to understand, I'm not fighting against the coffee industry. I'm not on a on a crusade here against the coffee industry. I'm on a crusade against non-education. People are not educated. And no doctor learns this in medical school, as no doctor learns about sugar or about electromagnetic radiation or about how to judge water. What is healthy water, which is one of my topics as well. No doctor knows about that. So the problem is that I don't want to make somebody guilty or feel bad about it. I want them to be aware of it. My thesis is being aware of a problem is half the solution. And once you find out, which I explain in a minute how to find out, very easy, it's your decision to say, okay, I understand and I want to get off it or not. It's just your decision. But you cannot, for example, as a father, drink 5 beers a day or 8 coffees and then look at your son and kick his butt because he's on crack. You're not better than him. What you drink is legally okay and in our society basically accepted, tolerated, but the addiction, the mechanics are the same. Now with caffeine, we're talking about coffee, but in fact it's caffeine, not the coffee. It's the caffeine in the coffee. And you have caffeine not only in coffee, you have it as well in black tea, green tea, white tea. They're all full of caffeine. You have it in most soda pops, and you have it in every energy drink through the wazoo. And nowadays, more and more caffeine hidden in food and in snacks. And of course, people go back to that snack because that's caffeine and they're hooked. Does that make sense to you so far, my friend?
Yeah, it does. It does. And just on the caffeine, because I remember watching at one event, and I was learning, they were talking about the coffee, but like sometimes, the powdered coffee that you get, the thing, apparently it goes moldy very fast. Or even if you buy it as powder, not like the Maxwell House and things like that, that'd be the cheaper versions, but even ground ones, after apparently like 2 weeks, that goes moldy, which sometimes, as you say, affects the stomach. But I mean, I do drink coffee. I've heard different things over the years. What I actually have in the morning is I grind it, freshly grind it, but I do it with a lemon. I squeeze a full lemon and I have a lemon coffee, I call it. And I just enjoy I really look forward to it. It doesn't run through me. I feel good with it, but I'm, hearing all the things. Am I addicted to it? Not sure, because there's been times where I mightn't drink coffee for a few years and then go back, but over the last few years, lemon coffee is definitely my kind of first thing that I'm doing.
Well, I must tell you, you're the first person in my life I meet who drinks lemon coffee. That's only possible that an Irishman invents that. Well, meanwhile, I say this here about our society, We are a coffee-addicted, caffeine-addicted society. As I said, sugar and caffeine are the widest spread drugs in this world. Now, let me underline and reinforce why caffeine is a drug. And how can you find out, which I explain in the book? It's very simple. Tomorrow, you decide, I want to find out. It's all about you finding out. It's not about me blaming. I just give you the tools, the information. All right. You say tomorrow, I'll stop now, tomorrow, to avoid any caffeine, which includes black tea, green tea, white tea, soda pops, energy drinks, coffee. You avoid it. You stop. And I would say that 95 to 99% of all people who listen now and would do that self-test, which I call your self-test, it's for you to find out. You will have within 1 day, 2 days, whatever, strong withdrawal symptoms. You get jittery, you become more moody, you become less mentally stable, perhaps physical as well. You wake up in the morning and say, I don't function, I need this thing now, right? You will find that your thoughts during the day, not having the caffeine, this picture of caffeine comes up in your mind more often than your girlfriend. you will think about caffeine a lot of times. And you see how the craving kicks in. And you see the withdrawal symptoms. Again, 95% or more of people will experience exactly that. I met only a few people who changed cold turkey and were fine. Very few. The majority cannot, which means you go back to caffeine within, let's say, 3 days. I don't think you can survive a week. Most likely only 2-3 days. And you go back, which is nothing else for yourself to prove that you are addicted. That's what I'm going for. I want you to find out, to be aware, because we're talking about health consequences very soon now, and to be aware why this is being so bad, right? Okay, so does it make sense, Roy?
No, it doesn't. I mean, like what I do actually is, because I remember I had somebody on about grey drinking, because you talked about, and a lot of people have drinking problems. And sometimes being Irish, you might have a whiskey or whatever. I never get drunk, and just recently I went off it for 6 weeks just because I said, I want to make sure I'm in control of everything. Didn't get withdrawal symptoms or anything like that. And I'm sure I could do it with the coffee as well. But I know that some people within a day, I mean, I don't take the sugar with it. I think maybe the sugar hit is another thing that people get. And I suppose if we look at like your picture, I mean, most people don't realize, but because they go to Starbucks, they get their takeaway coffee. A lot of times there's plastic inside in that. So they're actually getting not only the caffeine, but they're getting plastic as well that's leaching into it from the hot drink.
Yeah. Now, I must quickly, I try to be quick because the book explains it all in details, but the concept, God has given us emergency programs. And the biggest emergency program we have is stress. Now you would say, what the hell has stress to do with caffeine and coffee? Well, a hell lot, which I explain now. 20,000 years ago, when you were facing a saber-toothed tiger, it scared the crap out of you. Of course, you were afraid of dying, which is normal. Other influences in your life which scared you to death. In this situation, God has designed, whoever it was, an emergency program. You had to fight the tiger or run like crazy. Either one. And for either solution, you needed enormous power, more than your body would normally give to you. What you would normally have, you don't have that much. So in this moment, the adrenaline glands, these adrenaline glands, which sit on top of your kidneys, these adrenaline glands produce adrenaline through the roof. Now, we need to know that every person needs a normal, healthy level of adrenaline. We need that. But in this situation, the body says the normal level doesn't do it anymore. We got to have more than the normal level. So the adrenaline glands produce adrenaline through the roof. And this gives you the power to fight the tiger and hopefully make it, or run away. In either way, you needed more power than you would normally produce. Now, I got to explain this because in 1 minute you understand why caffeine is so dangerous. By doing this, the body says, in this situation of survival, I do not need sex. I am not hungry. I was hungry 5 minutes ago. I'm not hungry anymore. I'm not thirsty. I'm not sleepy. All body functions which are not geared for your survival, for your immediate survival in this situation, are stopped completely or strongly reduced. Because body says you need lungs to pump air. You need muscles to go up. You need to bring up your heart rate. All these things have to work now together to fight or run. And there's the dangerous part. Okay, good. So far understood? Yeah. Okay. Now, what does it have to do with coffee? Caffeine mimics this situation. I drink caffeine, and it's like a signal for the adrenaline glands. I'm in danger. You got to produce. Help me out here. Help me out. Produce adrenaline through the roof. I need it now. And caffeine does exactly that, which has a few consequences. Of course, we know, and let's not beat around the bush. Caffeine gives you extra energy, artificial energy. The price you pay is health, which I give you some examples soon. But the price you pay is that normal body functions are reduced. Yes, you have more power, you have more energy, because you needed it to survive against a tiger. But there's no tiger. But it works just the same. Now, it has enormous consequences. An associate of mine in Germany has a cancer clinic, alternative cancer clinic. And he found out, which I quote in my book and so on, he found out that basically everybody who has cancer, the adrenaline level in his body is non-existent, or non-existence in terms of health. Because through the stress of being in the cancer situation, being afraid of survival, the body's being suffering, the adrenaline glands are worn out. They produce over a long time so much adrenaline that they don't work anymore. They're worn out. They're sluggish. So a big side effect of caffeine consumption is over time you wear out your adrenaline level. And this is why as well a lot of people need more caffeine than at the beginning to get some kind of effect out of it. So what you do is you wear your body out with adrenaline, and which is of course very, very, very unhealthy. You see, we have a parasympathetic nerve system and a sympathetic nerve system. And we should live more, hopefully, on the parasympathetic nerve system, which gives you the coolness, the healthy body situation. But most of us live most of the time in a sympathetic nervous system situation. And if you look later on quietly, you can see the effects. So every time you live on a sympathetic nervous system base, you harm your body. We call it as well, you heard the expression fight or flight mode, right? You heard that? Yeah. The fight or flight mode is sympathetic nervous system, and this is unhealthy. Okay, so now you understand, perhaps now, only now, and I talk about this more intensively in the book with a lot of examples, that caffeine creates an unhealthy situation. Yes, it gives you energy, but the energy is artificial and you bought it, and the price you paid is a long-term health. Example for long-term health. The University of Southern Australia made a test with 17,000 people. That's a huge test, 17,000 people. And they found out that these 17,000 people had a reduction of gray brain matter. You may have never heard about that. A reduction of gray brain matter due to caffeine. And a 50% higher likelihood of dementia. 50% higher likelihood of dementia. Similar studies in Switzerland. I quote all these studies and the sources. I'm not making this up. Over my researches, there came a lot of information there. Now, we heard that, I told you that in the case of stress, your heart rate goes up, which is one reason you have more energy, because your heart rate goes up. Now, we know by the statistic that the number one reason in America to die are heart problems. So you think that caffeine supports your heart problems or stops them?
Stuff.
Okay. So another information to know is that caffeine, a lot of people have a misconcept about caffeine intensity level of caffeine in the coffee. So here's some statistics which I have in the book, of course, the caffeine concentration. Caffeine filtered coffee, you see different coffees and how much caffeine is in the coffee. And it's quite different. And some people have a complete misunderstanding which coffee is less harmful or more harmful. And of course, there's this myth about caffeine. Decaf coffee has no caffeine, which is not true. Decaf coffee has caffeine as well. Less, but enough to get the circle going. Now, there is something is called acidity. Basically, we're all too acidic. Here is an acidic level. We should have the pH called pH. 7.5 is neutral. Above is alkaline. Below is acidic. Now, every time we drink something or eat something too acidic or too alkaline, the body has to compensate under stress, again, under stress. And here is the acidity for coffee. Coffee is 100 to 1,000 times too acidic. 100 to 1,000 times too acidic, which is catastrophic. We know that acidity is a main cause for illness. And you may say, well, what the hell? If something is 7.5, let's say you drink water with 7.5, and I drink water with 6.5 pH. It's just one number. You say, what the hell? It's just one number. Yes, but it's what I call a logarithmic scale. This one number means it's 10 times too acidic. And coffee is between 4.2 and 5.9 in acidity, which is 50,000 times. When I get approached by people as a life coach, they have cancer and blah, 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 what to do. I cannot give medical advice. I'm not allowed to do that. But I can say what I would do. I would, if I have cancer, one of the things I do is I recommend is stop immediately to drink all acidic drinks immediately. And you see, if you go down there, you see pH 2.5, right? 100,000 times too acidic. You see that, Roy?
Yeah.
Now you say, who's so stupid to drink something which is 100,000 times too acidic for your body? Well, everybody who drinks Coca-Cola is so stupid. Coke products have typically a pH of 2.5, which is 100,000 times too acidic. So coffee is very acidic. And another piece of information for illness, if somebody has cancer, cancer thrives on acidity. The more acidity you give your body, the more sick the person becomes and cancer grows. Cancer feeds on acidity. It feeds on acidity. You nurture your cancer, and the same counts for sugar. You will increase your illness. You nurture your cancer with sugar and caffeine. Now, the next thing in health is, I want to give you some practical information, some practical tips there. A lot of people don't know that caffeine is a psychoactive drug. It's a psychoactive drug. And when you look there, you see that caffeine is in the middle field, higher than LSD, a bit lower than alcohol as a psychoactive drug. Now, most likely nobody ever heard about that, or not many people, because these informations are available. I came across them. I found them, but other people should know about it too. And the more you're aware of it, the more you know it, the better is your chance to be live a healthier life. That's all there is to it, right?
Has there been any studies with countries that aren't coffee drinkers with kind of dementia and cancers and things like that, as opposed to say like the US, which are, and maybe, some of European countries that are high drinkers?
Well, the studies are done by some cool people who don't care media, who don't care the vibe, who don't care what's fashionable. I compare it to the cigarette industry. The cigarette industry knew what they were doing forever. Like now, cell phone companies. Cell phones, at the moment, every third person dies of cancer. To my definition, the main reason is electromagnetic radiation, cell phone, Wi-Fi. The main reason, not the only reason, but the main reason. They don't want to know. When we talk about one day about this subject, I'll show you some more. While I pull up this thing here, very, very interesting. The NASA made a test. The NASA made a test and said, okay, how does caffeine work? So they took a spider or spiders, and you have this wonderful spider web construction, which for me is a piece of art, is mathematic. It's beautiful. And then they gave this spider caffeine. And the spiders were not able to do a spider web anymore. You see this before and after, which is obvious, a big, big, big issue. It's a proof. And the spider doesn't watch CNN. The spider doesn't read newspaper, all right? The spider doesn't know. It just acts, reacts. The other day I came home and my wife had this packaging here. Healthy energy drink for children. It's like a powder. You put it in water and you drink it. And she thought she did something great for her grandkids. Okay, I understand. She thought she did something great for her grandkids. And when you look at the packaging, yes, flower pollen, vitamins, antioxidants, vitamin A, D3, B1, B3, B6, B12, D. Everyone says, what a great thing for my kids, right? All it says is there, but they did not look at the backside of the packaging, where it suddenly says caffeine, 75 milligram per serving, per drink, which is a regular coffee volume, right? And you don't look at that. More and more caffeine you have in chewing gum, in all kinds of products. Now, what you said before about the situation there, the industry, don't forget one thing. Coffee is a huge business, and it's not coffee anymore. It's not about a cup of coffee anymore. There's a culture there. Espresso, cappuccino, different cup sizes, cafe latte, and the grinder and the coffee machine. There's an industry around it. And it's not only the drink anymore, it's as well the culture. You have these beautiful cups. They write on it with the whipped cream, with the foam. And then there's usually comes along as well, again, sugary products, all kinds of cakes, all kinds of sweets. It's a culture. It's a huge business, but I got to give you now, before the show is over, an alternative. I came across the situation that people who drink coffee and have a coffee for breakfast with a croissant or sandwich, I cannot say, look, forget about the coffee and drink some cold water. That doesn't fly. So people need an alternative. And here's an alternative I came across in America. Mono Brew. There's the website. I'm not associated with the company. I don't get a commission. I just want to promote alternatives for you to make the leap, leave coffee behind, caffeine. So this is a replacement for coffee. Very, very close in taste, in smell, in color, and it's hot. And for somebody who wants to get rid of coffee and doesn't go cold turkey, I recommend to buy this product And again, I'm not associated. I don't have financial interest. I just want to give you an alternative to make it. And this is a product I found in Germany for somebody who lives in Europe. I think they ship as well to America. Both companies, I bought these coffee examples and I tried them. Though I don't drink coffee, I could figure out that's really close to a coffee. Besides, for 30 days, I had my coffee experience. So you got to have, if you want to leave caffeine behind, you got to have a replacement for your coffee. You got to have a replacement for your coffee to make it, okay, on a gradient which you can live with, right? And coffee is a culture. As you said, everywhere you have coffee nowadays, coffee shops by the millions, by the trillions. And this is pretty much what I would like you to understand and to know before we end the show, before the time is up. You have any questions for me?
You mentioned the green tea and black tea. Is it kind of black English tea or like, say, rooibos and things like that? Is there any tea that's okay? Because especially Irish and English, which listen to the show as well, they love their cup of tea with their... Is there... And I always was told, oh, green tea is good for you. I never liked it. It kind of wasn't something that I ever took to. But on the tea side, is there any kind of healthy ones?
Yes, but only if it's fruit teas. Now, I told you at the beginning that I was 45 years ago very sick and close to die, and I found this doctor. You remember the story?
Yeah.
I had a strong food addiction. And one part of my food addiction was black tea, yes, with milk. Okay. Every tea, black tea, green tea, white tea, has caffeine. And it doesn't matter whether you call it Indian tea or Irish tea or English tea. It doesn't matter. Black tea, green tea, white tea have all caffeine. And caffeine, as I explained to you, has these consequences. And again, I was addicted. I had strong food addiction. I'll tell you my food addiction. It may sound funny to you. I had an addiction to bananas, an addiction to caffeine, which I drink as tea. I had such a strong addiction that my body became very sick. And this I want you to take away from today. You can be addicted to anything. Your body is your body, and it is addicted to something which maybe your wife is not, and vice versa. But addiction means it's harmful. And I have my own definition of what I call health. Health is body and mind in harmony. As long as your body and mind is not in harmony, you become very easy sick and stay sick and can't improve. Body and mind is in harmony. When you talk to people, say, oh, I live healthy. I eat bio food, organic food, and so on and so forth. First of all, most of these people don't ever talk about the water they drink, which is usually garbage. And without healthy water, you cannot be healthy. And they don't talk about their mindset. Your mindset is very much under control how healthy you are. And it's the balance between the body and the mind. So I know it's a tough one, especially for English and Irish people drinking their coffee, and a lot of them with milk, of course. Milk, we know, is a product which you shouldn't consume. Dairy products, you should not consume. Simple as that. Very hard. Do the French people live without cheese? No, I don't think so. Do the Irish people drink the coffee or tea without milk? I don't think so. So I was addicted. I know what it means. And this is where my journey started. Once I developed my thesis, which I explained before, addiction is stronger than your free will. And of course, it's tempting. This is why it is an addiction. This is why it's such a problem to live with it. Because you are addicted to it. And you cannot say no. And I gave you today some hints and some explanations and some background material. And again, if you read my book my book, I explain everything in detail in my book. And I understand if you say that's not for me, that's okay. All I want you is to understand. And even if you yourself want to stay with the problem, just remember you're going to pay a price. People come to me and say, why do I have cancer? I did everything so well in my life. I said, no, you didn't. If you would have done, you would have done cancer. Illness is no accident. Health is no accident either. Both are intentionally by your lifestyle. I'm writing my second book now, which is hopefully coming out by the end of the year. And the second book is called I Want to Die Healthy. A strange concept for some people, right? But we are kind of used, okay, if you die, you got to suffer before, you got to be in a hospital, you got to be on pipes and artificial respiration, and you're going to have pain. When I was younger, people just died when their time came. They were 78 or 85 or 94, and one morning they didn't wake up anymore because their time was come. But in our society, the illness comes, not your time, which was God-given. You shortened it by your lifestyle. You got to change your lifestyle. And I just give you some ideas here. And this next book, I give you a lot of ideas. But if you read this coffee book, and here's my message, even if you say, I stick to my coffee, screw you, fine. But what about your children? Don't you want to teach your children to live caffeine-free, to live as much sugar-free as possible? Because this determines their health. Don't complain, I'm sick. Why am I sick? I did everything so well. No, you did not. Is that too harsh?
Well, I think awareness is the most important thing, and I think you've shared, I mean, I've learned a few things today, so I'm sure the listeners have as well. And yeah, I mean, I think with the lemon, maybe the contrast is why it doesn't affect me so much. I know that I could actually give it up. I know I'm a researcher. I look forward to actually reading the book and going into it in detail. And just on, I mean, this is more on something that I'm seeing with the coffee, with the commodities market, that the price of coffee, and I knew it was going to happen, has doubled. But you can be sure the logistics company aren't getting the money. The farmers that are growing it aren't getting the money. So it's the powers that be are doubling their profits. But I think maybe it's a good thing, because if the prices have gone up, maybe less people will be drinking it based on what you've shared today.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Sorry, I can't agree. I don't think so. History has shown that regardless of the price of alcohol or cigarettes, people kept smoking, people kept drinking, and they cut corners and money somewhere else, but not to their addiction. Again, Roy, it's very simple. The addiction is stronger than your free will. You will do everything to get your cigarettes. I know in times of wars, when I talk to people, how did they manage to get their fix? They suffered, but at the same time, they fought like crazy to get their addiction. So you cannot rationalize addiction. It doesn't work that way. So whether the coffee price goes 20 cents up or down, if the price stays the same, it's because they squeeze the poor coffee farmers to deliver cheaper prices. Those big companies, they dictate the price. If a coffee farmer says, okay, I got to increase the price by 10 cents the kilo, will these companies accept it? They say no. They expect the coffee farmers to take the burden. They are the slaves. There's no question.
No, I know.
Okay. So this is my message to all the listeners, and feel free. I gave you my website. You can find a lot of information, talk shows, seminars, webinars, to all kinds of topics. You can send an email if you have any questions, and if you don't agree, please disagree. Tell me. I don't have a problem with that. I live with disagreements for the last 45 years. So I grow very healthy and happy with that. No, I love challenge. And I miss live seminars where people can interrupt me any moment and talk to me, or live shows where people can dial in and ask questions to have a conversation. I prefer a conversation than me giving you a monologue, you know.
Excellent. Like, listen, I mean, the website will be included in the show notes, both on the audio and the video. And if you're just listening, I'd encourage you to actually go into, we're on BitChute, YouTube, Rumble, and on Spotify, the video, so you'd see the presentation that he was doing during our conversation. Norbert's going to come back as well, because there's a lot of things we've got to talk about, EMFs, tattoos, and other things like that. So be sure to stay tuned. And thank you very much, Norbert.
Thank you for having me. Sloan, as they say in Ireland, Sloan.
Brilliant. Thank you. So that's all for the Awakening Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. As mentioned, scan the QR code or go to roycoughlan.com. You'll find all my shows along with my podcast coaching and also my school group that I mentioned. And if you're looking for a virtual assistant, go to va.world. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, subscribe, share with your friends. Until next week, take care.